So if you've been watching the news, you've seen the events that unfolded in Charlottesville, Virginia. What started out as an event called Unite the Right, where a bunch of alt-right, white supremacist, Nazi groups came together to really get all their different factions united. And there were different reasons they cited for why they came together, but that's really it. And so much terrible stuff happened. In the lead up to it, we covered it on the Young Turks and we were like laughing about how ridiculous it seemed because one of the people who was organizing it sent out this really ridiculous email telling people like what to wear and how to look cool and make girls impressed by you wearing tight pants. Like it seemed like it was gonna be hilarious. It ended up being not that whatsoever. A lot happened. Things you might have seen from it are from the kind of more ridiculous, such as like all these white supremacists holding tiki torches. Did you guys see that?
Yes.
Yeah. And they got called out. And then of course you've heard of the driver, Alex Fields Jr., who was arrested for allegedly driving his car into a group of people, killing a person. We're gonna talk about that. In the wake of it all, Donald Trump, who tweets about pretty much everything immediately, didn't say anything, and it took him over a day to make, essentially a whole day to make a statement on it. And what he said wasn't really talking about white supremacy or anything. He condemned violence on what he said was many sides. What the hell does that mean? And he got called out by a lot of people on social media, a lot of celebrities. People like Jeffrey Wright, who you might know from Westworld, he goes, "You got Nazis marching in Charlottesville in case Fox News didn't mention. Setting my timer to infinity now, awaiting your remarks. Show yourself." And then Patton Oswalt calling out the Nazis with tiki torches saying, quoting, it's like a fake quote from Adolf Hitler saying Hitler's last words were, "Just make sure Nazis never march with tiki torches. I'm trying to save Germany, not Gilligan's Island." Sarah Silverman saying those people are really upset. They should go back to their countries about the Nazis. We're all immigrants. And George Takei was a really great tweet. He said, "The last time I saw a riled up crowd carrying torches, some big wardrobe, a candle, a clock, and some dishware kicked their asses."
That was the best one.
Saying essentially like Beauty and the Beast. They look like the group from Beauty and the Beast. So you see all these white supremacists. We'll start there with their tiki torches out. So ridiculous.
Brett, your question was how did it make you feel as an African American who has, that these people clearly denounce, clearly don't want to have anything to do with. It made me feel fearful, depressed, and a little bit shocked that this is what's happening in our nation. And going with Trump, I think the lack of accountability and the missed opportunity was really frustrating for me because you have these white nationalists like David Duke, right, who is saying that that we're making good on Trump's promises. And when I talk about accountability, these people have interpreted Trump's rhetoric and all the things he's been talking about through his candidacy and now him as a president as this is what he wants for our country. And so these people are now saying Trump is approving this. And so for Trump to go on and not, again, take accountability for his base. These are his base. It was very frustrating. Presidents have defining moments in their presidency, opportunities to whip it out and show the world what the fuck is up. Yeah. And by Trump not doing that, and then 2 days later finally saying what he should have said initially is just ridiculous. A storm is coming. And people, they ask us, well, what do you think is the next step for our country? I'm hopeful, but I'm also real. And I think that this whole event has just thrown gas into the fire. Now these people that were angry before are now even more angry and more is coming. Hate doesn't sleep. The devil doesn't sleep.
I would say it's nice. There are some things that were reassuring to me.
Okay.
Everyone, like the Merck CEO stepped down and was like, Merck is a pharmaceutical company. The CEO of it was on the advisory committee for Trump and was like, listen, I can't do this anymore. Elon Musk has already dropped out. Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, has dropped out. Just being like, I can't affiliate myself with this anymore because it's gotten too embarrassing.
Yeah, and furthermore, we've seen Marco Rubio and Jeff Sessions, sort of unlikely contenders, speak out and say this was terrorism. And then Marco Rubio said white supremacy. And that's not who I would sort of have expected to have made a stronger statement about this than Donald Trump. But hey, I'm pleasantly surprised. I also think that it's worth noting that after Donald Trump's initial remarks, which he said just briefly before a bill signing, so it wasn't even like a speech that he had set aside special time to talk about the incident. It was just his brief remarks. Those were then dissected by Stormfront, which is a white supremacy website, and sort of analyzed. And at the end, they were like, this is actually good for us. He didn't denounce us. David Duke has taken to Twitter and said, hey, Donald Trump, remember who put you in the White House? It's white people, so you better stay on our side. And so what we're seeing is in his silence, he is complicit with these people. What I kept talking about with my girlfriend over the weekend was there's so many people who probably voted for Donald Trump or who would consider themselves like maybe passive Trump supporters, like, oh, it was like fiscally I align with him or whatever.
Right.
Cool. Just look at who showed up to your same party. Look at who voted on that same ticket that you did. That's got to be very unsettling. Trump needs to speak out and say something about these people who are supporting him.
That's the thing is when the Merck CEO resigned, within an hour, he said, this guy's gonna go back to overcharging on medication. He's like, he fired back on that. The fact that it took him this long to respond, and that his response was like, I condemn violence by many sides, shows that he kind of needs this vote. In his mind, he needs the vote of white supremacists. And when that's what you need or what you think you need, and you're afraid to alienate that group, what a terrible group of people to be associated with. The fact that you have to put kid gloves on to say Nazis are bad, you're not just a day too late and a dollar short, you're 70 years too late. We fought a whole war against Nazis, dude. It's not going out on a limb to say that they're bad.
And it's also not as though he didn't mention it in his speech, but he's answered questions. He has been actively dodging questions from reporters at press briefings at this same bill signing. You go look up the videos. There are people saying, will you denounce white supremacy? Will you denounce the KKK and Nazis showing up to this rally, which was again, unite the right. It wasn't unite the KKK, unite Nazis. It was unite the right. And look who showed up to the party. Like that's what it is. If you identify as like, oh, I'm alt-right, but only on this certain number of issues, like you have to take a cold glass of water and look at the fact
the alt-right is those issues.
Yes, and look at who's identifying with the exact same points that you are throwing out there. Like that's the truth. That's what it is.
It is what it is, Grace. Absolutely. Brett, can you shed some light on what white nationalists are? Because a lot of questions that were asked online is, what the hell is a white nationalist? Like I interpreted that as a super tied up in a bow, Mr. Clean version of white supremacy or white separatists, which are all the genesis of those things. The root is still racism. But am I wrong in that?
No, that's it. It is a white nationalists are people who are like, so there's two ways to look at any term. One way to look at it is to say, what is the definition of white? Okay, what is the definition of nationalist? Nationalist means just like someone who has pride in their group, right? And so there's also like, a nationalist can be just someone who's proud of whatever. So you could say that you could look at the words white nationalist together and say someone who is proud to be white and identifies them with a nation, okay? But what white nationalist means as a term together as it's used is white supremacist. There is no like white nationalist, and you can try to go up against me on that, but I will tear you down. But like when people say white nationalist, they're just trying not to say Nazi.
Right.
And it should be that. When people say alt-right, they're trying not to say white nationalist. Because alt-right is a group of people that came together with the express purpose of espousing Nazi-ish propaganda, and that's essentially what they're doing. So it's annoying, it's terrible, and that's what white nationalists are.
And Heather Heyer, I'm not sure of the pronunciation of the last name, lost her life because she wanted to stand up for those who were being oppressed, those who were being discriminated against. A lot of her friends are saying that she took injustice to heart. And I think it's important that we remember her and that we say her name, and that I read this one quote about her that sometimes she would be in tears at her computer screen reading through some of the news coming through, and she wanted to stand up with those and let her voice be heard, and she lost her life.
Yeah. I read a headline also this weekend, this final thought about one of the organizers saying that we should, as a country, have the same sympathy for the people who were racist and going against the opposing people, that we should have the same sympathy for them as we've had for the Black Lives Matter victims, people who died as a result. And to me, it was like, you have to be kidding me. The Black Lives Matter people, black people were not. The reason why Black Lives Matter happened was because people like me were being pulled out of my car and shot.
Right.
So black people weren't lining up to say, you know what, Grace, you're a white chick, fuck you. Let me just slap you around. I hate your fucking hat. No, so why would we have that sympathy? Do you guys think we should have sympathy?
No, so here, and then it's the same thing as white nationalists and looking at the definition of those words. There's Richard Spencer, who's another alt-right jerkface, is putting together this on 9/11. He's doing a march at Texas A&M, and they're calling it a White Lives Matter march. Now you can look at the definition of the word white and the definition of the word lives and the definition of the word matter and say, of course white lives matter. I think if to say the opposite would say they don't matter. But that's not how it's being used. That rhetoric behind that is different than the rhetoric behind Black Lives Matter. If you want to see amazing stand up about Black Lives Matter, Michael Che's special on Netflix called Matter.
Yeah.
Is he's just like, we just want to say that they matter. That's it. You're mad at matters. And then the White Lives Matter is just not, it's a disingenuous use of benign seeming language to get you pissed off. And you can be pissed off in a way that, I mean, when they do this, one of the ideas I had is instead of launching like this giant counter protest is just to set up a PA system around their march and pipe in a laugh track from a sitcom after every time they say stuff like this, or like a slide whistle to just release, show how ridiculous and terrible it all is. There's also a great video you should see. Soledad O'Brien tweeted it out. It was an anti-propaganda video from 1943 after during, I guess, World War II. And they were talking about, it was like a dramatized group of, there was like a Romanian dude or something talking to another dude, listening to a fascist speak. And all the stuff that they do in that video applies to today about how like groups that are like the ones that had their event at Charlottesville are just trying to fracture and splinter and turn everybody against each other so that their small group is, instead of fighting against a united front of people who call them wrong, are fighting against a bunch of little groups that are in turn fighting against each other. And so you can't do that. You have to keep your eyes on the prize. And that is to show how ridiculous these people are. One more tweet I want to mention is from Pete Wentz. Because a lot of folks are saying, these aren't Nazis, guys, don't call them Nazis. And he said, listen, I'm in a band. So if there was someone who bought a bunch of band paraphernalia, went to a bunch of concerts, collected a bunch of memorabilia from the band, you wouldn't say they're not a fan of that band. So if you go to a bunch of these events dressed as a Nazi, collecting Nazi paraphernalia, saying that that what they said was awesome, their work is great, you're a freaking Nazi, man. So don't deny it.